Saw dudes, I made a Peregrine Greaves build at the start of the season and wanted to try a solar version. If you didn't already know, shoulder charge abilities do 1000% increase impact damage to champions, tormentors, and mini bosses and get fully refunded on hit. On other units, the damage buff is only 225%, but it's more than enough to wipe the floor with them. Sunbreakers have access to some of the best healing and ability regeneration in the game, making this build extremely forgiving. Adding exotics to the mix gives this build a ton of flexibility. Let's get started. The game loop for this setup is pretty linear. Use your grenade against lower tier units to clear them out, and prepare a path for a shoulder charge. When you face champions, tormentors, or a mini boss, stun them to get the most damage in. Run towards them and jump, making sure you stay in the air for at least half a second to activate Peregrine Strike. After impact, seek safety and continue spamming the charge until the target is dead. Rinse and repeat. The super you use is up to preference. I run with Hammer of Soul most of the time because I enjoy having the ability to hit aerial targets. Burning Maul is fine, but you are locked to the ground. Rally Barricade is good for this build since it gives us and our allies a plethora of weapon buffs. However, cover can be scarce in certain areas, so if you want more, consider using Towering Barricade. We need to use Hammer Strike to take advantage of the buff Peregrine Greaves provides. It deals damage in a small AoE radius behind the main target and scorches on hit. If it kills the main target, it will cause an ignition. You can use any grenade you want, but I'm using fusion grenades because I like making Honey Bun references. Aspects of the Honey Bun hero are Roaring Flames and Soul Invictus. Roaring Flames provides a stacking ability damage buff through solar ability or ignition kills. At the maximum of 3 stacks, there is a 73% total damage increase. Soul Invictus causes solar ability kills and scorched enemy kills to create sunspots. Sunspots deal damage over time and apply scorch every 0.56 seconds. Standing in one grants a Soul Invictus buff for 5 seconds, granting restoration times 1, and 100% additional base grenade and melee regen rate. The fragments for the build are Ember of Blistering, Eruption, Searing, and Torches. Blistering causes ignition kills to grant grenade energy based on enemy rank. Eruption makes ignitions have a 20% increased radius. Searing causes kills on scorched enemies to grant melee energy based on enemy rank and spawn a fire sprite. And lastly, Ember of Torches causes powered melee hits to make you and allies within 8 meters radiant for 8 seconds. Armor time. On the helmet, I used Harmonic Siphon, Special Ammo Finder, and Font of Wisdom. For the gauntlets, I went with Font of Focus, Heavy Handed, and Focusing Strike. The chestplate had melee damage resistance and 2 variable resistance mods. On Peregrine Greaves, I chose to go with Recuperation and 2 copies of Solar Weapon Surge. And on the mark was Time Dilation, Reaper, and Absolution. A high resilience stat is mandatory for this build, or else you won't be able to make it to your target without dying. The only other stats you need to worry about are Strength and Discipline, which can follow a fairly even stat spread. Our sunspots will help regenerate the bulk of our abilities, so there's more flexibility for stats than in other builds. The rest of your points can be dumped into Intellect for a lower super cooldown. If you're enjoying the video so far, consider subscribing. It'll help me out a lot. Let's cover the weapons that we can use for today. There are 3 weapon loadouts, so navigate through the video to find what intrigues you. Weapon loadout 1 uses Conditional Finality, BXR Battler, or Callous Mini Tool, and Apex Predator. Conditional Finality works well with this build because it can freeze targets and cause ignitions on its own. Plus, it takes care of unstoppable champions with the push of 1 button and does not require any setup. The ignitions it causes works well with Ember Blistering to grant us more grenade energy throughout the mission. Freezing enemies can halt the onslaught of tougher adds and give us a bit more breathing room to set up Peregrine Strike. Now, I know many of you may think that frozen enemies will take more damage from our Peregrine shoulder charges. Unfortunately, they don't. Bungie thought about this ahead of time and made it so that they don't take any more damage. Freezing targets is still useful for setting up the shoulder charge though, so I encourage doing it. BXR Battler covers our close and mid-range engagements. While you could choose nearly any solar weapon, I think this is one that all new players should shoot for. It can have the perk combo of Demolitionist and Incandescent, which is perfect for solar builds, but also finds use in other subclasses. Incandescent pairs beautifully with Ember of Searing for constant melee regeneration. This can be a fallback in case we don't kill our intended target or just intend to Falcon knee everything. Demolitionist provides the extra grenade energy needed to clear crowds, and is a nice quality of life perk since grenade regen is through the roof already with this build. Because this pulse rifle has exceptional hipfire accuracy, you can get away with using it at close range without worrying about landing shots. With our double solar surge mods, having a damage perk isn't necessary. Callous Mini Tool is for the raid tryhards. I'm just kidding, I love you guys. This gun is the king of close range engagements and feels good to use. For many, it's a comfort weapon and does not leave the slot. While it doesn't have Demolitionist like BXR, it can make up for it in kill volume. It has a higher base DPS than its pulse rifle counterpart and is much cuter. The role I suggest taking is Fluted Barrel, Third Magwell, Threat Detector, and Incandescent with a stability or range masterwork. My beloved Apex Predator makes another appearance for another build. This weapon is our boss DPS tool and can perform ad clear in sticky situations. The role you're shooting for is Quick Launch, Impact Casing, Reconstruction, and Bait and Switch with a boss spec mod. The Solar Surge mods on Peregrine Greaves will make this perfect to use with a friend that has Galahorn equipped. Weapon Loadout 2 uses Monte Carlo without remorse and fixed odds. This loadout goes all in on shoulder charge uptime for spamming. Monte Carlo is used to regen our hammer strike energy directly just by landing shots on targets. At the maximum stacks of Markov chain, it will deal 65% more damage. Peregrine strike shoulder charges can easily one-shot enemies for a full buff and perpetuate the loop without much trouble. The catalyst allows for the use of the bayonet on the gun, and while it may seem tempting to use, this build does not make good use of it. You are much better off dedicating your time to landing hammer strikes on champions or other enemies than using the bayonet, since it's more dangerous and does not do as much damage. Without Remorse will spread Scorch to enemies with the help of Incandescent. It will be our flamethrower from TF2. The role I recommend using for this build is Small Bore, Assault Mag, Threat Detector, and Incandescent. Incandescent, as I said in the prior weapon loadout, works with Ember of Searing for melee regeneration. If a load of ads comes rushing, you can shoot one to spread Scorch to the rest, and kill them using Monte Carlo to speed up melee regeneration speed. This lightweight shotgun can easily put tougher units to rest, so mag dumping them is not just okay, it's encouraged. Fixed Odds is a machine gun that I recently picked up, and I have to say it's fairly good. It gives me the Rambo fantasy that I'm always chasing whenever I play my Titan. There are two routes that you can go with this gun. One is ad clear and the second is boss or champion melting. The role for ad clear can double as a melee regen stick. You would craft yours with Arrowhead Break, Flared Magwell, Field Prep, and Incandescent. This can ad clear extremely well, and every kill on a scorched enemy will refund melee energy. The boss DPS role swaps out Incandescent for either Firing Line, Killing Tally, or Focus Fury. You would need to choose the final perk based on how you intend to play with the gun and if you are playing in a group setting. Weapon Loadout 3 uses Super Cluster, Vex Mythoclast, and Apex Predator. I'm sorry in advance. Super Cluster is one of the many great shotguns in the kinetic slot, but I want to bring more people to try it out since it does a great job at dealing DPS. The role I use is Small Bore, Assault Mag, Lead from Gold, and Cascade Point. Because this role uses Lead from Gold, it's no longer necessary to use Special Ammo Finder. You can switch it out for Heavy Ammo Finder or another Siphon mod. This role increases burst DPS, but not the total damage that can be output. If you want to increase total damage, I recommend going with the 4 times a charm and Verbal Weapon role. For the best damage possible, you'll still want to use Heritage since the kinetic weapons do 15% more damage than their energy counterparts without factoring in damage perks. Vex Mythoclast is an interesting weapon with a storied past. It is technically a primary ammo fusion rifle but operates like an auto rifle. With the launch of this season, Vex Mythoclast got buff up the ass. It does 10% increased damage to red bars, 25% to bosses, and 200 to champions, though for champions it has to be in the linear fusion rifle mode. This gun is easily going to be meta just because of damage, and not its feel. However, it does lack the ability to scorch targets, so if you want a long range option that can do that, try out Polaris Lance. I will warn you though, that Polaris Lance requires you to play at a very long range to plink effectively, something that is counterintuitive to our build. Apex Predator comes back again just like your creepy ex that you can't get rid of. Just craft yours with Quick Launch, Impact Casing, Reconstruction, Bait and Switch with a boss spec mod. I hope you guys enjoyed this build. It took quite a bit to get together because I've been grinding a ton in Warframe in preparation for Gauss Prime. I'm still prepping other games to bring you all fresh content, so stay tuned for the new year. Let me know what you think about this build, and as always, thank you for watching and happy farming.